Good evening, everybody, and welcome to another exciting episode of Moen After Dark here on the College Football Mafia. I'm joined by my co-host Rock and Rant. How are you doing tonight, Rock and Rant?
I'm doing excellent. How about yourself?
Not bad, not bad. Got some sun this weekend, got some fresh air, had my allergies act up. So there's all that. We're gonna talk some college football tonight, college football conference realignment, all that good stuff. And most important of all, we're going to be taking your comments and questions. So please feel free to drop those in the chat right now. I'm going to start off. I wanted to talk about this on Friday, and we got kind of sidetracked as we oft do on Friday nights, and I tend to drink a little too much. But
Is
I
there such
wanted
a
to.
thing?
Oh yeah. I wanted to talk about who's covering the freight for Florida State and Clemson. We know that Fox paid for Oregon and Washington. Uh, and we know that CBS and NBC are going to benefit more from that payment than necessarily Fox would. What do you think for Florida State Clemson? Are they coming in at full shares? Who's covering the freight?
Yeah, I mean, it's a great question, right? And I also think that pass is not necessarily prologue on any of these things, though the one thing my best guess, and these are all purely guesses for all of us, right? Some degree of informed is that I just don't see two teams coming in together where one is honestly publicly taken at half to somebody else. I think it was one thing for USC and UCLA to come in at 100%, and then a year later, two other schools, Washington and Oregon, to come out at 50%. I just don't see the Big Ten or SEC in a random possibility doing what the ACC did with Cal, Stanford, and SMU. I see Clemson and Florida State coming in together at whatever price that is, and I tend to think they'll figure out a way to make it 100% share because of the value of Florida State at a minimum.
Yeah, I tend to be with you. I think it's going to be there. You're not going to bring in one as a junior partner. You can't do that. It just looks bad. But the problem is you've got Oregon and Washington out here who came in at half rate, and now you're bringing in two new members at full rate.
Yeah, and I guess I'm making an assumption that the powers that be were wise enough to be really clear that to those schools what would happen. But if they didn't, then certainly there's a way different political situation. The one dynamic that could be at play that alters that in a tough political situation is if in fact, it's not a one conference bidding, it's an SEC versus Big Ten that changes fundamentally than a Washington and Oregon having two conferences, potentially really three that wanted them, but a clear separation between a Big Ten invite and a theoretical Big 12 and or ACC invite.
Right. Right. I mean, at that case, if you're competing with the SEC, you have to bring them in as full members. There's no exceptions that can be made there.
Yeah, I think people tend to get, and for good reason, get caught up in the terms of a contract and the length of contracts, but willing parties of a contract can decide to renegotiate or add or amend things. Do I think that there's the possibility that if the Big Ten took Clemson and Florida State, that they at 100% they would have to go do something for Oregon and Washington? For sure, and maybe it's possible that a year later into this, without a gun to everyone's head kind of thing, that they figure out a path for Oregon and Washington to make them not feel like the only two that were at a different place. Like contracts can be amended as well as ruled invalid. Like we're looking to see what might happen in the ACC with grant of rights. So there's a lot of different variables that could come into it.
Right. And you'd have to think CBS, NBC, Fox, if everybody pitched in to get those guys full membership. You could also pitch to a new media partner. You would have
You could.
more inventory you could pitch to probably get everybody up to 100%. Oregon, Washington, Florida State, and Clemson.
Correct. And you could also, you're plusing time slots too. If you bring Florida State and Clemson in, you have potentially more valuable matchups, right? So everyone's slot, you have more valuable things to disperse across all the confirmed time slots right now across the networks, and that means that maybe the Leafs game winds up being more on the streaming partner at the end of the day, or something else happens, or like you said, you can open up another time slot with the consent of all of the people to the contract.
Right. Let's say hello to some people here. Joaquin Morales was first in here today. Good to see you, Joaquin. Does he remind you to smash that like button? Yes, please do. It's free, cost you nothing, helps us out tremendously. Like, and if
It
you're
helps us.
and comment. Drop us,
It helps us way more than you know, guys.
yeah. Drop a comment. We'll answer it. You might not like the answer, but we'll answer it. Ryan, the Evil Badger's here. Timothy Green, if you're not first, you're last. Let's get ready for another great show, folks. Thank you, Timothy Green. Buckshot Kid. Oh, hey, at the College Football Mafia. Good to see you, Buckshot Kid. Timothy Green, a tribute shout out to ACDC. Have a drink on me. Here you go.
That's very appropriate.
Yeah.
I'll tell you guys ACDC stories one day on one of these shows when we have free time.
Well, I mean, if you've got a good one right now, you might as well drop it.
Well, in a past life, I worked for their record company, and I ran across the back of the stage and almost got blown up, not knowing that For Those About to Rock was about to be the next song, and the big old cannons were getting ready, and the red light went off as I was trying to use it as a shortcut across the back of the Wilkes-Barre Arena. True story.
Now you know why he can't hear anymore, guys. Antoine Codes is in the house. Good to see you, Antoine. Kazoo, Moen, congrats on your trivia victory last night. Greg had a fun show. It was fun. But it ended in a little controversy because everybody thought they were getting their answers in first. And that happened to me twice. I saw two of mine appear first in chat, but
yeah, I'm gonna have Mason Rudolph nightmares forever just because I had typos trying to type so fast. You know, I just wanted two. I just didn't want to be. I wanted to be like second, third, or fourth or something at least. So I'm not gonna let Greg forgive that.
At the end, Greg was asking the score, and I started guessing numbers. I was like, I know it was 60 something, 70 something. But thank you, Kazu. Don in Kansas, good to see you, Don. Mosito, here from the beginning. Yay, Rutgers guy. Don't sleep on Rutgers. We're going to be talking a little bit football here, guys. So it can't all be realignment. Coy, hi all. Good to see you, Coy. Bob Swanger. Jared Jones, yo, yo, yo. Congo is in the house. Shonsky. Hello, everyone. Hopefully some news tonight we didn't already know a month ago. Well, we knew that they were leaving. We just don't know where. Brett McMurphy came out with that story less than a month ago. Clay Johansson, you get to say this one, Rock and Rant.
Oh, yeah. Go blue.
Illini Ted's in the house. Good to see you, Illini Ted. Let's see. Who else is here? Sky is in the house. Happy Sunday. You're right. It's Sunday. Sunday, Sunday, Sunday. And I think we will get one more in here. Mark Bowman, I like your hat, Moen. Today I saw a bumper sticker that said, "Be yourself, everyone is already taken." Yeah, you know me, I'm always myself. We got Squirrel. I think that's Squirrel. They going to vote no expansion? Probably the Cali schools too. I'm not sure who you're talking about. You're talking about the Big Ten?
I think he means or the Big Ten, though. You know, it's possible, but I tend to doubt it.
Rutgers and Maryland, Grayson Ganoush with the Sagat pitcher. Rutgers and Maryland received a half share for a long time too. Nebraska received it for 5 years. Yikes. All right, we'll pause it right there. And then we'll get to some more questions here in a minute. So let's talk a little football before we get into realignment talk. What did you think about Miami's offseason, their signings? What are you looking forward to most this year?
I'm looking forward to improvement in clock management skills first and foremost, but above all memes aside forever, you know, I'd probably go into this season the most optimistic for somebody who's fairly, you know, glass half full some days, glass half empty other days, because 20 years of abuse as a fan gets you there. I go in pretty optimistic. They made some key additions on the field. Most of the games that Miami lost last year were very low score differences, and where one or two key plays could have made a big difference. So, you know, I'm not prepared to say that Miami's going to the college football playoffs, but I also am not surprised. Like, if I was taking the over under of 9.5, I am probably at the 10 level at this particular week. But they got to prove it on the field ultimately. But I'm pretty optimistic, and I don't think for the first time it's just hype. And no, Miami fans actually don't generally say, except for a few loudmouths, that we're back. None of us actually think we're back until somebody actually does it on the field, despite popular lore.
I was going to ask you, is this the year they win the conference championship?
Well, if they're going to do it, they might as well do it this year before it's completely meaningless, right? I mean, if the operating assumption that Clemson and Florida State have a very good chance, if not them and others, of leaving the conference for 2025 and after, it sure would be nice to win it this year, but we shall see.
And who do you have as your top three in the ACC this year?
Oh, it's a Florida State, Miami, Clemson thing for me. I know North Carolina State has done a pretty impressive job this year, and I think that they could be I don't even know if it's a surprise, but potentially move into that top spot. Louisville, like, I'm not really sure what to think about them. They had a good year last year. And I think for Virginia Tech, this might be the year that they kind of take a step back towards the program that a lot of us were familiar with. And it's not just about the entrance. It's like a great history of them being a pretty impressive program. So I'm hopeful that it's a huge rivalry in the past for Miami. And it's one of those ones where it was I respected that program.
Yeah, I like Florida State, Miami, Clemson as well, although I'm not super high on Clemson with their transfer portal issues. Until
They don't have
Dabo
an
can
issue.
figure that
They have
out.
zero.
Yeah, well, their issue is they don't use it.
Yeah, somebody's drastically right or wrong on that one, right?
Yeah, you can't be. Yeah, not great, but that's what I see for the ACC this season. I mean, North Carolina State, I think, probably will be in that 8 to 9 win range. North Carolina is probably going to be in the 6 to 7 win range. Virginia Tech, I'm just not sold on Virginia Tech.
Yeah, I can understand that sentiment. Their schedule isn't the easiest. SMU, for all of the jokes about it, they could overperform, not because I think that they're a top-notch ACC team in year one. They just do happen to have one of the lesser schedules just by luck of the draw. So they might do better. And I think Rhett Lashley is a really good coach. I don't know how long, if he's going to be there for years or gets poached in a few years, but I think he's a good coach, whatever they do this year aside.
All right, let's take care of a little business here, guys. If you want to help support the channel, you can become a member. We've got different membership levels. In order to do that, you can either select join right by the subscribe button underneath the video, or go down and click the little cash icon in the chat window. From there, you can become a member. You can gift a membership, or you can leave us a super chat. We read all super chats. If you gift a membership, we will make sure everybody in the community shouts you out and thanks you for it. We'll try and do our best on that regards. Anyway, I can't force people at gunpoint. But being a member gives you access to all our perks, which is custom emotes in the chat, access to the Wild Ute University and timeline and other videos behind our members only section. And it gets you a nice little loyalty badge next to your name to show how long you've been a member of the program.
Yeah, there are definitely some amazing videos in there, either from the mind of Moen to Wild Ute trying to school people with facts that are just at least the basis of decisions. If not, not everything is purely about the data, but it's nice to have data-backed argument where you then put your gut and feelings and opinion on top of it.
Mr. Ed Wayner says, hello, gentlemen. Have FSU Clemson gained value perspective? P2 conferences because of all the media attention they have received. FSU with the playoff snub and efforts to exit the ACC. I think they, regardless of the media attention, that they had high value.
Yeah, I mean, it's even if you go back to the several years where Florida State wasn't winning and they were having some problems in the program before they landed onto their current coach and turned the program on. If you just went back and looked where the recruiting classes were, look where the brand rankings were, facts are facts, and they were always a top tier program for any sort of realignment. In a perfect world for all these conversations, you'd have, schools that aren't really top-notch football programs not in those conferences, but sometimes birth where you're born is a great thing for certain schools. So relative to everybody else, you have to make those decisions based off of where those brands are and they fit. They just do.
Shonsky, I know one thing is for sure, realignment isn't happening this year. Well, I don't know. Well, realignment is happening this year because in July and in August, July the ACC gets a new member. In August, the Big Ten, the Pac, or the Big Ten, the Big 12, and the ACC get members. So
yeah, and realignment, and I know there's fatigue in some quarters. I like to say it's one of the things we love to talk about the most and can't wait to stop talking about at the same time. Realignment has a big impact on what's going to happen in football this year, right? Like, who's different conferences moving. Some conferences are now moving away from divisions, right? So realignment is impacting who is going to be determined going to playoff spots, going into even conference championships, because you're going to have wild tiebreaker scenarios coming out of the mix here because of how many schools are going into certain leagues. Like the Big Ten is the one I'm most thinking of, but not necessarily the only one that's going to have that happen.
And Shonsky, we are talking football. We talked ACC, but by all means, anybody in chat, give us your top 3 ACC teams this year. Let's see what everybody has them ranked at.
Yeah. Give us your top 3 and give us if somebody was going to surprise everyone, who would that be and why?
Yeah, it was dark horse. We got a super chat here from Ryan Willie. As I can scroll down to pull it up. There we go. Wisconsin will surprise a lot of people. I hope Greg is learning on Wisconsin. I'm confident that I won't need to give 20 memberships. Well, if you just bet on the Minnesota game, I'm sure you won't have to. I think that's an easy win.
Yeah, I think as much as I know Greg was celebrating getting a 3-star recruit today, which is great. I told him if he had given me my point in the trivia question, he would have gotten a 4-star today. Just the way it works, it's karma.
Yeah, I would have decommitted from Miami. So thank you for your super chat, Ryan. I'll tell you what, if Wisconsin doesn't beat Minnesota, I'll give away 10 memberships on this channel. So I think that's I think that one's easy, but that's just me. Joaquin Morales, Moen, I had to leave before you answered my question the other day when wife got discharged from the hospital. You might have to ask me the question again, brother. I don't, my memory's not the best sometimes. I have a little too much to drink.
Yeah, Friday recall. Let's go. First thing you said.
That's right. Get a memory box so I remember what's going on. Hooded Ninja. Haven't seen you around here before. Good to see you, Hooded Ninja. Oregon, Florida State, and Ohio State, Clemson should be big games. I think we talked about this. I think Florida State and Penn State would be a rivalry game. I think Ohio State, Clemson would be a yearly rivalry game.
Yeah, just think it. There's a lot of ones you could figure out coming, and also depends upon how frequently an even larger Big Ten conference in this theory. How are they going to lock in permanent rivals or semi-permanent rotations when everyone's trying to get all the teams to dance around the league?
Grayson Ganoush, Rutgers and Maryland received a half share for 9 years and now are paying off a ton of loans that the conference extended them. Well, they had a buy-in. They had to buy into their share of the Big Ten network. But yes, they had loans. They were also loaned. And Washington and Oregon are receiving loans as well. So at some point, those will have to be paid back. But they got Nike money and Microsoft money, so I don't think that they're too worried about it.
Yeah, and there's it's no disrespect to Rutgers or Maryland, but neither of them are Florida State.
We got a gifted membership here from Coy. Thank you so much, Coy. And that membership went to Clay Johansson. Congratulations, Clay. Welcome to the College Football Mafia family. There we go. Make sure you I see you already thanked him in the chat for that. That is much appreciated. Coy, we appreciate it. Clay appreciates you, and everybody's appreciated. Minnesota Seminoles, Scott, I believe the ACC is slowballing the lawsuit to try and keep FSU as long as possible. Do you that the ACC will be more willing to settle if FSU announces they are leaving this month?
Well, I mean, FSU is also, they're both slowballing lawsuits depending upon what state it is and where they're hoping gets precedence, right? So they're both taking it from one court to an appeals court in both states. Um, you know, I don't know if that's the thing that makes them more willing to settle. I tend to think it's more about whether ESPN puts the pressure on them around any possibility of the grant of rights the media deal tied to the grant of rights coming out either in South Carolina because of what's going on with Clemson, or the attorney general in Florida's separate but adjacent suit in Florida.
Joaquin Morales, here's this question. If Notre Dame loses one of the 4 G5 games and loses 2 P4 games, they go 9-3. Do you think they make CFP as an independent? It's going to be dependent, I think, more on who the 2 P4 games are.
Yeah.
Just my opinion.
Sure. Yeah, you have to wait and see, like, who are those 2 P4 games, and were they on the road? Were they close? Where do those schools wind up finishing in the final ranking? So it's really going to be weighted by what the committee is going to see in terms of quote unquote good losses. You also don't know how much all the other teams are going to beat each other up. When you start to get down to 10 or 11, 12 in the rankings, you can sometimes get schools with 3 losses who had quote unquote good losses.
Yeah, and I hope your wife's feeling better, Joaquin. Hooded Ninja, any partial membership period is just buy-in for Big Ten shares. Les Austin Jr. says the bad words. Go ahead and say it.
I mean, I think I can only do that once a meeting as your co-pilot there, because I still don't like Michigan either.
Okay.
I'll do it once just for the sake of the conversation, but twice, there's got to be something attached to it of value.
Movie Time Blues, is there anything to indicate that the Big Ten has contingencies for going past 20? Well, Kevin Warren, if you listen to Kevin Warren and Brett McMurphy, the news that was leaked to him by a Big Ten source, there were contingencies to go past 20.
I think that you can almost reverse that question. We're all assuming that they're going to 20 only for now. I can't find anything, and maybe Moen, because you've been paying attention to it more as your home conference for years. It's just, to me, it's like speculation feeding on top of speculation based off of people assuming that the current media rights deal that only from a Big Ten perspective has a few years left to go. Granted, it's a pretty extensive deal. I don't know that we all do or don't know that they're not willing to go to 22 or 24. That's not part of the master plan. I think we're all making the assumption based off of reading tea leaves that could be pretty factual and some degree of fan filling in the blanks that it's a 20 spot. Maybe it's two by two over a couple of years, right? Everybody thought it was only going to be 2 years ago because they could have gotten Oregon and Washington at the same time, or Stanford, and then a year later they changed their mind. So does anyone have knowledge that it's only 2 because of some massive report, or is it just our speculation, really?
Right. And there were discussions last year about going to 20 with Stanford and Cal and Oregon and Washington. So,
yeah, I mean, I tend to think you either go to 20 or 24. I mean, you can make any scheduling work, but it seems like it'd be easier, even if you're doing pods, if you're not doing divisions, but it seems 24 just might work better ultimately with 4x6, but who knows?
Sergeant Pickle says, good afternoon, all. Going to listen along while doing yard work and knocking back a couple of cold Georgia Techs. I've just got Cherry Coke Zero tonight, guys. So I got to get up early in the morning. You'll have to forgive me. Clay Johansson, I heard Rutgers has the top 3 recruiting class in the Big Ten right now. Is that true? Probably. I know they're up there. They're definitely up there. Greg Schiano's a great recruiter.
he is a good recruiter, and they're putting some resources in. If you told me next year at this time that Rutgers is having a top 3 recruiting class with the potential of there being a June signing day, I would be super impressed, because it's likely a lot of that class sticks. A lot of not that many people flip, but enough people flip from early commitments. So let's see where we are for all the schools, regardless of class ranking. You get to November, especially this year. For some reason, I just think it's going to be, this keeps on ramping up with NIL and laws changing and all the sort of sand moving under everyone's feet.
Me versus Echo Chamber. What's up, guys? Good to see you. Me versus Echo Chamber. Good to see me. Shonsky, let's talk all football. Realignment won't change this season's matchups. Let's do it. Put your if you haven't done so yet, Shonsky, put your top 3, top 4 for the ACC in the chat, and then let me know. As a Noel fan, I think Miami is going to win the conference this year. Ooh, might have jinxed you.
I can, even if it's a jinx, I always appreciate fans. We all have our zones where we love our schools, but I also enjoy conversations with fans who know their schools really well and also pay attention to what's going on and have like a fair conversation about it, right? I think Florida State, they deserve to be in the playoff, as an example, right? Like my Cane side might want to laugh at it, but I think they were screwed out.
And then he says Clemson will finish 8-4 this year. Might be.
I guess a good question is, if Clemson starts becoming an 8-4 program without doing the transfer portal, I don't really know that they would force Dabo out, but what does Dabo do if his theory doesn't hold true as everything's changing around him? Does he change finally because he doesn't have to worry about breaking his word to the players because everybody understands? Does he say whatever? I know DP's in the chat, but any other Clemson fans, I'm just curious what the scuttlebutt is for Dabo going the strategy he does right now, if he has an 8-4 season again, or not again, but it has an 8-4 type season this year. Like, what happens? What does he want to do? Does he get to control his own destiny? Like, what's the take there?
Edward Wilson, haven't seen you around here before. Welcome. Big Ten Dream expansion, Florida State, Clemson, Miami, Irish, North Carolina, Duke, or Stanford. I think he's saying Duke or Stanford is the last 24.
It's a good that's a good list for sure.
Yeah, good lineup. I don't think North Carolina is going to be available.
Yeah, I mean, I might substitute somebody else into that last grouping because I still probably have more of a football focus on it, but there would be nothing wrong with that. There would be nothing wrong with that conference from August through March, right? In terms of those sports. Selfishly, I'd love another Southern school or two that is pretty good in baseball to join in to make sure that sport can be well represented in the Big Ten when you're bringing in the Florida States and Clemsons and Miamis of the world. But SEC would have a lot less to talk about football conference-wise with that kind of lineup ultimately.
Mary Crocker Rose says Florida State has better coaching. I assume she's meaning more than Miami. I mean,
yeah, I'm not as big of a Mike Norvell fan as I'm sure Florida State fans are, but until Mary knows how to take a time out, I'm not going to try to put him up in the game managers Hall of Fame in any way, shape, or form. I have more faith in their coordinators on that front and maybe somebody getting in his ear and letting them do their thing. I'm a big fan of the idea of letting analysts or others be on the field and having literally a timeout and take a knee coach.
DP, Florida State and Clemson both have QBs that have so far looked average. If Miami gets elite QB play, they could be there in the end. What do you think about the QB this year? He went to the draft and then came out of the draft to go back to college.
Well, it's June, so I love him now. In early January, not so much. There's a lot of we've had a few high-profile transfers come to Miami that definitely had a bunch of drama around them, and I don't know that there weren't other schools that had that, but I'm just more obviously aware of it. But all the reports are really good from inside the camp. Everybody, as I say at other times, this is lying season, right? Whatever school the colors are, we all have that shade of glasses on. But he has a better offensive line. That's not really a question. He's got better wide receivers. That's not really a question. He's got an elite running back. So I'm optimistic that the one drawback he had that he's conscious of and that Miami's worked on with his propensity to fumble is at least diminished enough to allow him to succeed.
Me versus Echo Chamber says Big Ten dream expansion is Florida State and Texas A&M if they go past 20. Add Georgia Tech and Miami.
I mean, it would be amazing if Texas A&M made that move. I'm not on that fan of wish casting dream scenario of A&M leaving the SEC. I just don't see a team leaving the SEC. As great as the Big Ten is, and even for more money, I don't see it.
Shonsky, with all the disrespect from Florida State, they better win the ACC or it's going to be a huge disappointment for them. Remember that Florida State has been carrying all the teams in the ACC.
Well, it's the ACC, right? So it just means less. So
now go ahead and move over so people can see it just means less.
Less money, less good commission, less teams,
less TV spots because the SEC is going to dominate the TV spots.
Yeah, less CFP money.
Yeah. Illini are finally building up a Burt-style offense, but that defense is still a work in progress. The transfer portal has been helping fill some major holes lately. Yeah, I mean, I think they're all trying to be the next Witherspoon. I know they got a defensive back transfer in there that was actually people were somewhat high on. So, and then Coy wants to know who's Burt. Yeah, Brett Bielema. His real name is Burt. That's a Big Ten thing. He's been Burt since Wisconsin.
The Illini, that's one of those schools where I remember when I was young being aware of them before I was aware of college football to any degree. So it's always, without being a Big Ten deep diver, I've always wondered, why is that school not ever taking the step to be more elite? Because it seems like there would be a possibility. Again, I'm totally flying blind on that one, history wise and current status wise, but
they've taken the step before. It just hasn't usually panned out. They hired Ron Zook off for getting fired from Florida, and he had a good season with Juice there, even though that game against Ohio State was they call it a win, but that guy fumbled into the end zone. It was a touchback. If we'd had instant review back then, Ohio State would have won that game. Shonsky, they have lots of respect just because of the whining. Florida State has done nothing but disrespect their peers. Sad.
I'll have no comment because any comment I have will be considered massively biased. I'm
not going to answer it either because, let that shit play out on the field. DP has his top three as Florida State, Miami, Clemson in that order. Louisville as the dark horse. Clay Johansson has Louisville, Florida State, Clemson. So he's got Louisville right there at the top.
The only thing with Louisville that just concerns me is what's going on in that program. Again, this is a little bit of information can be dangerous, but there was just a lot of rumors about their NIL program having some challenges and problems recently. Maybe that all got sorted out and players came in, but I think their coach is excellent.
I know they had some kids transfer out too, that there was some personality conflicts. So, Edward Wilson, Florida State, Clemson, and Miami seems to be the top three teams in the ACC will be Miami, Florida State, North Carolina State. The surprise team is Georgia Tech. Wow. Greg's here. He says, "Yo, guys, crazy."
Mason Randolph, Greg. Mason Randolph.
Mr. Ed Wayner has it as Clemson, North Carolina State, Florida State, Miami will kneel into fourth place.
You're fired again, Ed.
Realignment isn't talking football, Moen. It's talking about the awesome matchups we are going to see this year. Okay, well, that does include realignment, though. I'm sorry. They are joining the conferences this year. That's realignment, technically.
Well, what's your favorite, to like sort of blend those two? Like, what is the most
Oregon,
anticipated
Ohio
new game?
State. It's Oregon,
Yeah.
Ohio State. Or, USC, Michigan. I mean, that's up there, too.
I mean, depending upon how the preseason polls come out, for whatever grain of salt they are, you're basically adding a potential top 5 team matchup that wouldn't have existed without realignment, right? And
Yeah.
also 2 very different styles of football historically. I know Oregon might be beefing up more for there, but they have a coach with very good Eastern, Southern roots in that program who seems like he's going to be there till the last day of his coaching career if all things pan out. So I think that's one of the pluses. There's some stuff that gets taken away, but that is a matchup that any college football fan, I would imagine, is going to be hoping to live up to the hype that could come from it.
Yeah, those 2 teams could be top 5 by the time they meet. That could be a top 5 matchup. I think in the preseason polls I've seen now, I think they've got Oregon as number 6. So we'll have to see how that goes. But yeah, there's going to be some great matchups this year. In the Big 12, hey, Utah playing anybody in the Big 12 is a huge matchup this year. Utah's clearly going in as a villain.
Plus, all of these calls are great practice for when EA25 comes out and you have to deal with realignment and NIL. Like, this is like just hype for that too.
Does the ACC want success this year for FSU and Clemson? Well, yes, they get paid more money. So
yeah, that would be my answer. Unless somehow, yes, they want more success. Unless somehow 2 other teams or 3 other teams somehow took their places in enough position to get into the college football playoff. Right? It's not really just about one. It's whether 1 or 2 other teams get into the place to bring more money into the conference. I think even then, though, you want those schools to be good because you want your schedule and your matchups and your ratings all year long to be as good as possible with your current TV deal, regardless of everything playing out, because that feeds into other things on the ACC network, ad rates, and just, you've been beaten up, rightfully, hence my background. I mean, I'm definitely not on the ACC fan club thing, no matter what realignment ultimately plays out to be. But they could use a good look. In a way, like Pac-12 had a great ending to the. It was kind of depressing because they had one of the best years when it was past the point of salvageable. But I think regardless of that, they would just want their schools to do well for just the overall picture.
Ryan Willie with another super chat. Numbskull News swears that there won't be any realignment after Florida State and Clemson. Could be right. Moen, please don't give me PTSD with mentioning Burt.
He could totally be right. But 4 weeks ago, and I watch him because he just makes me laugh. Like I love him. He just cut it right to the chase. He's one of my favorite people to watch online. But a few weeks ago, it was a different take, right? There's new information. Some of it could be 100% true. That could be changing. Like it's just the awesome speculation game, which makes us both interesting to talk to, and obviously for a couple of the people in our chat, frustrating to have to keep talking about.
Yeah, and I won't say Bert's name 3 times, so you don't have to worry about it. But don't go in the bathroom. Don't go in the bathroom and turn off the light and say it in the mirror.
Does that bring you home like the Wizard of Oz kind of thing?
He'll appear and eat all the food out of your refrigerator. Mr. PATC Trivia World Champ. Yeah, but there weren't a lot of people playing either, so the only reason Notre Dame will make the CFP is their shit schedule. Well, because they're Notre Dame. That's that'll cause
they
it.
Start to win. they start the season like almost a half step ahead of everybody, right? Just from reputation and favorability. You know,
Yep.
and they also get the benefit. You know, some people think it's a negative in this round, but they don't have to play a conference championship game. So yes, they don't get a bye necessarily, but they also don't have to take that extra game beating before they start to play.
Florida State and Georgia Tech are playing their opener in Ireland and Dublin. Let's talk about that matchup. It's going to be awesome. Let's talk about the games. Okay, Sean,
So
we're talking about some games, brother, but this is a chat driven show, so you got to lead us into these things. Yes, Florida State will kick the crap out of Georgia Tech in Dublin.
So other than the interesting part of having a game out of country, like I get Notre Dame, you know, for obvious reasons playing there. I'm just curious from a Florida State or any Georgia Tech fans, like you know, who know more of the background about the origins of those schools going to that game because I'm not sure that I'm aware of what the history of that one is versus some of the Notre Dame
Yeah,
traveling stuff.
it has something to do because Notre Dame or not Notre Dame, Northwestern and Nebraska played there 2 years ago. So I think it's an ongoing thing where they're going to have one NCAA game from
They're just doing something more regularly like the NFL did, I guess. Then it's not specific to this. I just think about the Shamrock series originally. That's like the first time I recall that, so I wasn't sure with but that just became an offshoot.
Well, I think the NFL does games in London, so they're going to do games in Dublin. Coy says the college football mafia, the Clay comment is for basketball. They don't have a top football class. So Rutgers is top 3 in basketball, not football. But I know they have a good. I thought they had a good transfer class. Maybe that's what I'm thinking about.
Yeah, and I don't get to say anything about Rutgers right now.
Rutgers is going to surprise some people. You want to talk football? Let's talk Rutgers. Rutgers is going to surprise some people this year. They're this year's Maryland. Morris Simmons, a member of Florida State, Clemson, Notre Dame, and A&M to the Big Ten. That's it. No other value left.
I'm utterly shocked that Morris would say that. I mean, I'm just completely surprised that he would leave Miami out. There's no past history of that from him.
Clay Johansson, is there any meteorite for a Big Ten after dark on Saturday? If not, can Big Ten get one? I see a couple West teams ads just to get this maybe. Well, they already have one Big Ten after dark game. It's Rutgers at USC. Will kick off 11 p.m. Eastern time, 8 p.m. West Coast time. So,
hey, let us know in the chat if you would actually tune in to a late night with some of our West Coast peeps. Big Ten, CFB Mafia After Dark corollary show those nights, knowing that I'm out here and Pickles are there. Let us know.
Yeah, that'd be fun. Good watch along. Movie Time Blues is giving us all the conferences. Big 12, Oklahoma State. SEC, he's got LSU. ACC, he's got Louisville. Big 10, he's got Penn State. Yeah, Drew Aller's going to have to show me a lot for me to pick on Penn State. Coming down the stretch last year, he was not on the top of his game. Shonsky, Texas, Michigan. That's another good game. Florida State, Georgia Tech, Ireland, Ohio State, Oregon. Come on, guys. We have beat Realignment into the dirt. We got you, Shonsky. All right, we got you. We're going to have, in the coming weeks, we're going to have guys on from the Big 12. We're going to have guys on from the Big 10. We're going to do season previews. We're going to do our top 25. We're going to get our not too early Heisman voting. We're going to do all that. I promise you, sir. I promise you. Ryan Willie says A&M is not going to the Big Ten.
Ryan Willie is a smart man.
Morris Simmons says there are several schools ahead of Miami. Miami has been irrelevant for 20 plus years.
I love when Florida State fans always start things as if they didn't have 4 or 5 years of losing records and didn't have Doak also empty at times. But okay, I never start, but I won't just let it go all night either. Also, Miami hasn't had back-to-back losing seasons in those 20 years, so it's not necessarily as mediocre as it seems at times. But whatever, everyone's entitled to their rival hatred. I don't start, but I won't just let it completely go for 6. But you can do the next 5 more. It's just totally cool, and thank you for being a member for these guys.
Yep. And I'm going to probably get to more member comments down the stretch here, guys, because we have so many coming in tonight. Again, Norville runs circles around Mario. Moen, do you think Ohio State beats Oregon in Oregon? I think that game has massive Big Ten championship all over it. I think they do. And if they don't, I'm wearing the Donald Duck hat. So, and that Donald Duck hat's like 30 years old. So,
I mean, between you and Hats and Greg and on PATC having to possibly sing, there's some, there's some outcomes that I might be rooting for, even though I'm technically possibly rooting or betting against, because it's like a win-win situation.
or if Ohio State loses to Oregon in that game, Ohio State will win the national championship. Because this is the first year of the 12-team playoff. In the first year of the 4-team playoff, they lost a game during the season, won out to win the national championship. They'll lose to Oregon, win out to win the national championship. But the only game I really care that they win is the last regular season game of the year. Mark Bowman here. This is right up your alley. We talked a little about it. Cam Ward, will he be that spark?
I think so. Whether he takes it to the next step. I mean, look, he's got all the money riding on the line right there. He came back to try to get his NFL grades higher than expected in this past draft. So he's got to take that step, and one of those would be to take that hype and turn it into those kind of wins that really reflect well on him for his draft status.
Expedition Greg, Ohio State versus Oregon, definitely Big Ten game of the year. Yeah, I don't think there's any. That might be the college football game of the year.
Definitely in the preseason running for that. When the season starts, everything could change, but that's what it looks like from afar.
Just be interesting to see who the quarterback at Ohio State is.
Is that still up for a question despite high-profile transfers?
Well, I think because they had nobody leave Rock and Rant, they had like nobody leave. So you got Will Howard, who transferred in, 5th-year senior. You've got Devin Brown is still there. Lincoln Kineholtz is still there. Julian Sayin transferred in and he stayed. Aaron Nolan was their 5-star coming off of signing. So, I mean, they've got 5 quarterbacks there at Ohio State right now.
What would be the fallout, though, from like a Will Howard perspective if he doesn't actually play after being pretty fairly high-priced, I'm assuming, acquisition is one of the 2 or 3 most theoretically in-demand transfer quarterbacks earlier this year?
He'll get paid his money. I think that's going to be the most important thing to him. But, I mean, it's, it is what it is. Ryan Day has to win. So, I mean, I have to think that if Devin Brown was healthy last year, he probably plays the last 2 or 3 games of the regular season, or at least gets significant playing time, because Kyle McCord was dog crap, especially in the Michigan game. Got another super chat here from Mark Bowman. I predict that whoever loses the regular season Oregon-Ohio State game come back to win the. Yes, I just said that. Great minds think alike, Mark. Thank you.
Well, in that case, what would you rather do?
I'd rather have the national championship. I'll wear the Donald Duck hat and get the national title. That's an easy call for me.
But is he talking about the national championship, or is he talking about the Big Ten championship game?
Oh, that's true. Well, I'd still rather win the Big Ten championship. If we beat them, get them in the rematch, that's fine. Thank you for the super chat, Mark. It's much appreciated, sir. And that's your 20th super chat on the stream. Thank you very much. I will give you a legitness.
That was legitness. Yeah, it was. Huh?
Is that a new one? Or?
No, that's an old one. That was legitness. Yeah. Shane Keena, I haven't seen you before. ACC Raycom deal expires in 2027. That's the big restrictor plate. Good analogy. Expect those games to slide into streaming and mobile in addition to CW over the air.
And Jim Swafford will just laugh.
I was going to say, that's right up your alley to make the comment on Swafford and his son. So thank you for the super chat, Shane. It's much appreciated, sir. Yeah, I think.
I mean, he's still making what, 2 million a year was the last report, and the 2023 ACC payouts was rumored that his "thank you for screwing us" going away severance was an awesome number about what SMU's media rights are worth in the current.
Yeah, it's amazing to me that there's corruption in college football, but I mean, like, they didn't even try and hide it. It's like so much nepotism and graft in that whole deal with Raycom that they just never even tried to hide.
Yeah, I mean, look, it's the ACC has, no one has Old Boys Network more on them than the ACC, despite perceptions. At least the SEC makes some pretty smart business decisions, even if they have that history or power base among certain people.
Difficult. This is from Dennis Hattie. Difficult to see college football being content with large, heavily populated regions of the country not being interested. Midwest and Southeast and Texas are good, but you need the new Northeast and Mid Atlantic. I think you will. I completely understand what you're saying, Dennis, but I think they're trying to get more of the casual fan from those areas than the hardcore fans.
Yeah, and they would use the SEC as a perfect example of, the SEC ratings in all the areas that the SEC is not actually geographically having a footprint are pretty damn awesome too.
Timothy Green, it really does not matter who wins the ACC or the Big 12, in my opinion, because even with a perfect record, I would think they will take a one-loss SEC team or a one-loss Big 10 team instead. Well, they can't this year, Timothy, because it's a 12-team playoff starts this year. So that ACC
Yeah.
champion and the Big 12 champion get automatic bids.
And plus, when you get down, historically, I mean, anything could happen. But when you have all of these powers beating up these powers, it's unlikely when you balance out records and rankings and all the things that, because there still is a committee, right? Like, there's some criteria for the top four, and the G5 schools, but there is still going to be a choice. Like, it's possible that the quote unquote 12th best school in the rankings and power rankings and opinions doesn't get it because the G5 school slips into that category. But generally, you don't have a lot of one loss teams when you get to 9, 10, 11, 12. But you could, but it's unlikely that you're going to have that scenario play out all the way that deep. But there will probably be that same thing that Timothy's talking about will happen when it's a choice of a two-loss ACC team versus a 3-loss SEC team. I think that's entirely possible for the same basic thing to play out.
Daniel Gygax is here in the chat. Here is a big question. What if FSU and Clemson lose in court? It will put everything on hold.
It depends upon, I guess, right? It depends upon how it's interpreted. It still depends upon what the ESPN does or doesn't do. I mean, we make the assumption potentially that if Clemson and FSU were still in the ACC for whatever reason, just to play the game theory out, that the ESPN would renew their contract, but we don't know really past 2027. So there's a second part to it. Like, ESPN might be like, you know what, actually, I'll make more money not renewing this contract and allowing or giving the pathway for those schools to go to the SEC because we still own that. And I'll get better ratings on a lot of stuff. I think anyone who I'm one of those people, and not conspiracy level, but just the more people think that they know exactly what's going to happen, it's almost invariably that we're going to be wrong on something pretty big.
Yeah, I think it goes to settlement anyway. I don't think this gets to a court battle that's a win or a loss.
Yeah, there's no kids in this divorce that you're fighting. Let's stay together for the kids, right? Like,
right.
if you're, that's just not really in the cards there. I don't know that you even want them to stay because they're just angry for 9 years, and I don't even think that will be the case. They think they would probably still buy him out, just a matter of time.
Michigan plays USC, Oregon, and Washington this year. Good. That I'd say good. Shonsky, yes, you can. Moen, can Ryan Day finally win a big game, or is his legacy going to go down with cheating Harbaugh? It's not that he can't win a big game; it was that he couldn't beat Michigan. He won big games. I mean, he took him to a national championship game in his second season, I believe. So it's not like he can't win the big game. It's just, and he took him to the playoffs his first season. So he's just got to be able to beat Michigan. I want revenge for the Rose Bowl against Oregon. May you get it. May Oregon win or may Oregon lose every game. I'm not an Oregon fan. Jarrett Jones, Illini 10. Game of the year in the Big will be Illini versus Oregon. That could be a sleeper game that Oregon could get upset. You never know. That just seems like one of those games. Although they've got to play the spoiler maker, so it'll probably be Purdue, Oregon that gets the upset. But Ryan Willie says ESPN will screw someone this year. They're already screwing their shareholders, so might as well screw some other people too. Who do you think gets left out by ESPN?
Only because it would just fit the narrative. It'll be some ACC school that doesn't get the slot. Like they're a one-loss. They have one loss, and the 11th and 10th, and I'm not counting the 12th slot, are all 3-loss SEC teams because it would just add 3 months of content for somebody.
Could you imagine that? You thought ACC they'd be apoplectic if that happened. Yeah says, doesn't Notre Dame get in every year by default? Pretty much, unless they really screw up, they're going to get that pass by being Notre Dame. They're going to get their Notre Dame in this. So, Clay Johansson says the game he's looking forward to most as a Michigan fan is USC Michigan at home. That bodes well for them being in the big house, but I think USC is going to win that game. I think USC is going to be much improved this year.
I mean, they've definitely invested in their defense. We'll see if that plays out.
Let's see here. You're chatting, Moen. Okay. All right, Chonsky, chill out. We got you, brother. Yes, but only maybe to 27 instead of 36 because of the ESPN extension. Talking about the grant of rights. Wisconsin versus Pitt in Dublin in 2027. Again, I think they've got a series of games they're playing in Dublin. So, and then Dan Miter comes back with Iowa State and Kansas State in Dublin in 2025. Isn't that the Farmageddon game? Isn't that what they call Farmageddon? How can you have Farmageddon in Ireland? I don't know.
Well, there are farms.
Yeah, I know there's farms, but different kinds of farms. Gophers quarterback Max Brosmer over Rutgers Greek Rifle. Now, last year you were singing the praises of that Greek Rifle when he was in Minnesota. Now that he's in Rutgers, singing the praises of Max Brosmer, who's in Minnesota.
But Mason Rudolph was better than both in college.
Yes, but his name was Mason Rudolph, not Mosky Rudolph. Yes. FSU in the Big Ten will keep the rivalry game with Florida and drop Miami. That has been discussed already on various FSU vlogs.
More power to you, Morris. Most Miami fans would never think about dropping the rivalry with FSU. I'll just leave it there.
After Dark is the best, worst football in the world. Insane things happen, but it is highly entertaining. There you go.
It is must watch. I mean, that's the thing. You'd be randomly checking Twitter or X or whatever you feel like calling it. I'll call it Twitter. And at 9 o'clock at night, and all of a sudden, the game is trending because something insane happened, and everybody's who's still awake is going there for the fourth quarter.
Yeah, I like Maction. I liked Pack After Dark, but that's, as a degenerate gambler, that's because you can chase it. You can chase that night game to try and make up for all your losses during the day. Jared Jones says I would absolutely watch a live show of Big After Dark with y'all. So you and Sergeant Pickles can stay up late and do that. I don't think I will attend.
We'll figure out a way. You can just do the intro and do a little rant on what happened that day, and then sign off and pass it on.
Ryan's in the same camp I am. Sorry, Sergeant Pickles. I'm not watching a 10 p.m. game. All right, guys, we got about 15 more minutes left. So anything you absolutely want to have read is going to have to be a super chat. Otherwise, I'm going to defer to members' comments. We're going to try and get through them as quickly as we can. If you have a question, a comment, you want us to talk about something, go ahead and throw it in the chat, and we'll try to get to it if we can. Jared Jones says, Ohio State games aside, Texas, Georgia, that's a good one. Utah, BYU, Holy War rivalry. USC, Michigan, Florida State, Notre Dame are some games I'm really looking forward to. Florida State, Notre Dame, that'll be a good test. Be a good test.
Yeah, that would be a good one. I'm definitely really interested in the Utah BYU game for me. One, because I've become more educated talking to all of, to you and Bomber about things, but also just, when you're randomly tagged into a conversation about that game in the Big 12 on Twitter, and it goes on for like hundreds of posts of the most vitriolic stuff, Holy War is definitely an accurate description.
Sergeant Pickle says, call it rival hate, but if Oregon loses more than one, I could see them fully implode. It's championship or bust for them. What happens if they lose to you guys this year? Will people be screaming that Dan Lanning can't win the big game?
We really need to find an Oregon fan or influencer to get on a show with Pickles, because I'll get the popcorn for everybody. We just need to see that happen.
And Morris Simmons again says, Miami will not be in the Big Ten unless FSU is in the SEC.
But Miami will be wherever Morris lives, living rent-free.
Moen, if Ohio State does not win the national title, will Ryan Day get fired? Not if he beats Michigan. It's goal one is he has to beat Michigan this year. If he doesn't beat Michigan and doesn't win a national championship, he's likely gone. If he beats Michigan and doesn't win a national championship, I think he'll be okay.
I mean, that would be pretty amazing if he were to go 11-1 and just like he has he couldn't beat Michigan thing and he's done.
John Cooper ruined that for everybody because John Cooper was new. I don't know if you're old enough to remember John Cooper, but yeah,
I remember that. Yeah,
he could recruit like hell, coach like hell, except that one game a year he would always blow it. Ryan Willie has gifted 5 memberships to the College Football Mafia family. We'll see if that's going to close it out there for
Let him cook.
There we go.
Let him cook now. Let him cook. I said let him cook.
Sky, Jose, BR7062, RT, and Joaquin Morales were gifted memberships by Ryan Willie. Welcome to the College Football Mafia family. Thank you to Ryan Willie. Make sure you guys thank him in the chat. If you're not watching live, make sure you thank him in the comments. Ryan, we can't say enough, dude. Appreciate your generosity to the nth degree. You're a great member of the community. Love you, brother. I will give you your evil laugh, too. The evil laugh of the evil badger. Let me try and get back up to where it was here. Tronsky, Kyle McCord only lost 1 game in the Big Ten. Either your conference is weak or Ryan Day can't win big games. Mo, and I would be concerned if I was you. Kyle McCord was an awesome freshman quarterback, except he wasn't a freshman. He was a junior. And he was a 5-star coming out. And I think, it showed in those games that Marvin Harrison Jr. not only carried him in those games, but he carried him to a 5-star in high school.
But talk about Ryan Day nightmares if Kyle, when he went to Syracuse, right?
Yeah, has to play him at some point.
Well, just even if Kyle, if Kyle McCord balls out under a new coaching in, not necessarily just a Syracuse way, but like a clear cut, story way, and with all of the quarterbacks that are in the quarterback room at Ohio State, if for some reason things don't go the way people were expecting from whoever wins the starting job and their second in command, it would just be add more fuel to the fire that you're talking about in terms of the Michigan need for him to win.
Almighty Finn is here in the house. Hey, fellas. Hey, Almighty. I
Cool.
asked Greg. I don't know what's going on. You know, I asked him. That's all I could do, man. It's out of my hands now. I asked him
Glad you're
very
here,
nicely for you. So, if he does let you back in, do not abuse the privilege. If he's warned you a couple times, just, lay low. Illini Ted says, could a Power 4 conference champion be left out of the playoff with, say, a 9-4 record, but yet other conference members make it as at large?
I don't believe that there's a you suck out for somebody winning the conference title for the P4. The winners in one slot 1 to 4 period.
Well, no, it's a top. If a G5 is ranked ahead of them, I think the G5 would get in that slot.
I could be wrong on that one, so I will defer on that.
And that is fine, Coy, but he's not a horrible quarterback. He's not a horrible quarterback, but when you're when you're playing at Ohio State with receivers like Marvin Harrison Jr., Emeka Egbuka, you had Cade Stover at tight end. You got to be able to win with those guys, and he was middling quarterback at best. Jose, congratulations to Moen for becoming the first reigning PATC tournament champion. Thank you.
If I didn't know that Moen was real, I would have been convinced that he was also an AI bot.
I know a lot of useless shit about college football. I think you ought to see it regular trivia. Regular trivia, I go into bars all the time and just play by myself and beat teams. So, useless shit I can remember. It's astounding. Ryan Willis says, I believe that Wisconsin has the toughest schedule in the Big. I don't know. After reading that rundown of Michigan, it might be Michigan.
Is that an evergreen message you send every year, Ryan?
FSU Miami is a great rivalry. Hope that doesn't go away.
Most people would agree with that.
Jose, Pac-10 chasing after dark. You're absolutely right. You got to chase it. Clay Johansson says, I will watch a 10 p.m. game, but I'm a sucker for more football. Yeah, I watch Pac after dark.
If you want to stay up late, just do one parlay and make sure one of them's the late game, and magically you'll stay up.
Yeah. I'll back off, Moen. We were talking about football now. Yes. We talked some football, Shonsky. I didn't lie to you. It was not a misnomer. He didn't play last year. Kansas State benched him. McCord or Howard. Talking about Will Howard being benched. I remember John Cooper used to coach Arizona State. I think it was actually Arizona he coached. I could be wrong, but I believe it was the Arizona Wildcats he coached, not Arizona State. Because the one big game he did win was the Rose Bowl against Arizona State, which denied them a national championship with like 6 seconds left. Joe Germain to David Boston. And that was when they had Jake the Snake Plumber. If Miami loses to Florida, I don't want to hear anything from a Miami fan. Well, he threw the gauntlet down. You got to beat Billy Napier.
Yeah. Georgia. Go. Next.
Antoine Coach, John Cooper beat Michigan in the Rose Bowl while at ASU and beat ASU in the Rose Bowl while at Ohio State. Sure it was ASU? I guess it was Arizona State. My God, you corrected me.
So if Ryan Day gets fired, he's going to have to go to a school with black uniforms so he can keep the Just for Men deal going.
If Ryan Day gets fired, he'll go to Arizona State and somehow beat Michigan in a playoff game. All P4 champs are in the playoffs. Yeah, it's just a matter of where they'll be seated in the playoffs. I met freshman at Ohio State. It's hard to type on here sometimes when you're not getting the message from. Never mind, it's Big Ten. Why should I expect different? Chonsky, the #1 Big Ten hater. Yep, Joaquin Morales, Cooper coached at ASU. The line I Ted, any chance we see some type of conference challenges set up in the future, like the Big Big 12 best of 8 assigned games, similar to what basketball does. So kind of like doing what the Big and the ACC have done in previous years, the Big ACC Challenge. You do it in a scheduling agreement like that, you're going to have all schools get on board with it. The way it is now, each athletic department sets its own out of conference games.
Right. But it's been great to do that when they've been bunched together too.
Joaquin Morales says, ain't happening, Moen. We got Kenny Dillingham. If Ryan Day was available and Arizona State was in the market and could pay him the most money, I think they probably would drop Kenny Dillingham for Ryan Day. And then Clemson lost in baseball today. I don't know if you knew that. West Virginia lost as well. And the only reason I know that is because Florida State fans keep tagging me on Twitter with the baseball news out of Florida State.
Well, hey, I might be mistaken, but man, Florida State took their frustration of the football season out on what was a UConn in that one game. I think they just scored like 5 more runs. I mean, that was nutso.
Fox should schedule a big Big 12 basketball challenge. Man, if the Big 10 would only get their heads out of their asses and make basketball a priority again, that might be a good matchups. Jared Jones says Big SEC has a ton of OOC football games in the near future. Yes, the joint advisory group has made sure of that.
Definitely better than the Alliance.
Calling it now, Romo Dunze has a far better rookie season than Marvin Harrison Jr. You're wrong, Pickles, and I'm willing to bet money on it. Marvin Harrison Jr. will be the offensive rookie of the year in the NFL. Kyler Murray be damned.
Rome is really good, but I don't know. MHJ is pretty amazing. I would have been happy if either of them fall into the Jets, who I root for.
Yeah. Well, the Jets got to figure out how to maximize the use of Garrett Wilson first. So
yeah,
they've already got a fantastic receiver. They just need to have a quarterback that can throw it to him.
Oh, for sure. I just wanted somebody to deflect for him so he didn't get double covered every time.
Rome can have a great year as the third Bears option. Yeah, I don't think he's going to have a bad year. I think Romo Dunze is a great draft pick for the Chicago Bears. They get a receiver to go with their new quarterback. The only problem is he's a new quarterback. Kyler Murphy. Now Kyler Murray has slid off, but he has had all pro seasons before. And he's going to throw to Marvin Harrison Jr. He's going to target Marvin Harrison Jr. way more than Romo Dunze is going to be targeted. That's it. But I think we're going to wrap it up here, guys. We're hitting the hour and 15-minute mark, which is usually right where I want to stop it. That's right in the sweet spot when we're just talking to hear ourselves talk. So I want to thank everybody for coming out tonight. Thank everybody for their generosity with their super chats. Again, a special shout out to Ryan Willie for the 5 gifted memberships and Coy for the 1 gifted membership. We added 6 new members to the family thanks to those 2 guys. It is much appreciated, guys, and thank you for all the super chats from, let me run them down here, Ryan Willie, Mark Bowman, Shane Keena, and Ryan Willie again. So thank you guys all for the super chats. Anything you want to say on the way out, Rock and Rant?
Yeah, just a couple of things after the show wraps. It would be great. It would be great fodder for next week too, but also on our Discord. Join our Discord and let's keep talking about who we think is going to make the playoffs. But specifically, if you could drop into this episode and drop actual comments, we'd love to hear your top 12. Like, who do you think is making the CFP playoff? Who's your dark horse? Let's start the conversation there. Bring it over to the Discord. If you're on our Discord, that would be great. And we can kind of use that as a springboard into next week too.
Yeah. So Sean Ski, we're going to have him put them in the comments. We're going to talk football. Drop it in the comments. Give your 12 college football playoff, your 4 conference champions. Throw them in there, guys. Let's see what we come up with. We'll be monitoring the comments to reply to those. And peace out. Oh, hold on. Programming notice. Tomorrow at 8 p.m., Big West Mafia show with Sergeant Pickles and Becky Go Huskies. Tuesday at 8 p.m., Big 12 Mafia show with Nate Bomber Brown, Wild Ute, and myself. Until then, next time, peace out.
Take care.